Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm doing a little bit more work with these retro iron sights on this AR-15. So one of the things I've been trying to work out over the last couple of days is with these retro iron sights, how to do the stuff that like I normally do with a red dot on these iron sights, okay? So for example, the fast target acquisition, the moving and shooting, okay? So one of the things I've been focusing on is Caveman EOTech. Okay, and I did a video on this a couple of years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, in relation to using an AK-47. And the idea here is that you take your front sight post over here, right, and you put it on top, the whole thing, and you put that on top of your rear sight. So on an AK, right, the post protectors are kind of roundish. Okay, so when you put it on top of your rear sight, which is flat, it looks circular, which it kind of looks like the 68 MOA circle of an EOTech. So that's why they call that Caveman EOTech. Now in an AR, it's not so roundish. They look more like bunny ears that come out. But the same idea, you can take that and put that on top of your rear sight, and you know you can do really fast target acquisition. Okay, now when you're doing this technique, right, the gun is going to be pointed just slightly higher, right? Because like normally I got that dot, when the gun was zeroed, it was zeroed with the dot in the center of the ghost ring, right? So now you're putting the whole thing on top of that. So the gun is pointed slightly up. So what that means is when I'm shooting at my targets, instead of aiming here, I'm aiming kind of at the belt line. Okay, so I'm putting my dot at the bottom of my target instead of, let's say, at the chest area, because of the way I'm using my iron sights. Okay, so let's do this first slowly. I'm just going to come up and do an up drill. So I'm going to come up, right? Easy, right? You can see how, you know, again, not centering the front sight post in the circle, taking the whole thing, the whole thing with the bunny ears, and putting that on top of the ghost ring. Okay, let's do that again. Yep. Good. Add a little movement. So what I did on that last one, right? I started off with the Caveman EOTech. I got a couple of misses. As I was moving back, I basically transitioned to moving my front sight post inside of my ghost ring. So just because I start off with the Caveman EOTech doesn't mean I have to stay with that, right? That's just to get me on target to take that first shot or two, and then I can transition to a correct sight picture. By the way, don't mind my voice. I have a bit of a cold. Nothing terrible, just a minor sore throat. So that's why I'm gonna sound a little weird today. But it's not stopping me from doing the stuff that I normally do. So let's do this again. Again, just let's see. You guys should be able to see me here. I'll shoot at that target over there. So I'm gonna come up. Okay. Okay. So again, I'm aiming at the bottom of the target, like at the belt line. Okay, and then from there you can take one shot at the belt line and then transition to a good sight picture. Okay, so you can practice transitioning from your Caveman EOTech to a standard sight picture. Now, one of the important things for making this work is you gotta anchor consistently to the correct place. So what's most important here is that my face touch, but the stock touches my stock and my face at the exact same place every time, right? So when I come up, it's always in that same position. So I'm looking for these two connection points here, right? That's going to give me that consistency and allow me to be able to hit the target. Okay. So this is one of the things I've been working with, again, moving and shooting, and I'm finding that it works pretty good. Okay. You know, it's one of those things, like, it's one thing to hear the idea, the theory, and it's another thing to actually practice it and to see it actually work. It's just that you got to transition from shooting, you know, when you're doing the caveman EOTech, you got to transition from shooting up here to going to the belt line, because the gun, right, you know, you can see how here I got a perfect sight picture, here I got the caveman EOTech. So basically the muzzle points slightly up. Okay, so so like I said, one of the things I've been trying to do is I've been trying to figure out how to use the iron sights the way that they would have been used in combat, in a CQB kind of environment. Okay, so here's the thing. Back in the 80s, I had a lot of access to a lot of the guys from Vietnam, but at the time, I didn't know the right questions to ask them. Okay, so unfortunately, a lot of those people passed away. I can't go back to them. I do have access to some guys that fought in the first Gulf War. Okay, a few. What I find is a lot of them have forgotten, you know, these details. You know, it's like a lot of times, because a lot of times what I'll do is I'm training. They'll bring their kids or their wives to me to train, and you know, when I see them go to shoot, I'll see them. They'll come up and they're struggling, and I'm like, you know, I see that they're struggling to find their sights. And I'm like, wait a second. When you used to shoot, didn't you shoot on your left side? Because I can tell that the left eye dominant just by what they're trying to do. And they're like, oh yeah, that's right. I used to shoot on my left side. So shooting is a perishable skill. Okay, if you don't do it, you forget it. You lose the muscle memory very quickly, and then it doesn't take long before you lose the knowledge itself, right? Before that slips out of your mind, because your brain can only hold so much information, and what your brain does is it pretty regularly drops off the information that you don't need, right? It's just like any computer. There's only so much data that can fit in your brain, and it just automatically, you know, forgets things that you don't need. Okay, that's how, you know, just like, you know, with a computer, you delete stuff, right? Well, your brain kind of does that automatically. So what I have found is a lot of the guys that came back from the first Gulf War that used the iron sights offensively, right, have forgotten how to use them, forgotten how to shoot the guns, for that matter. So most of the people that I have had contact from that trained me were our Iraq and Afghanistan vets. Now those guys had just come back from the war, because back in like 2008, when I became a range safety officer, I used to have a lot of contact with those people. And you see, I learned to shoot with the iron sights on an AR-15, but that was just target shooting. Okay, you know, when I started coming into contact with these guys and I saw what they were doing, I'm like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I want to do that what you guys do. And you know, I would basically reserve like range time for them, like after the close of the range, on, you know, stuff like that, so we could do that sort of stuff. They all had like red dots, right? There might have been early versions of red dots, but they all had red dots. That's what they had been using. So I basically put red dots on my ARs as well, and I learned the stuff that they knew. Okay, they had all qualified with iron sights, but in combat they had used red dots or something similar, like maybe like an ACOG or something. So that's what they were used to using. That's what they knew how to use, and that's what they taught me. So now I'm kind of like in the process of trying to figure out how these iron sights were used offensively, because normally when we think of iron sights, we think of iron sights today as backups, right? It's a backup thing. If your optic fails, then you go to your iron sights, and at that point you're using your iron sights to get out of there, right? Because things have gone drastically wrong. If you think about it, right, if your equipment fails, right, in the middle of, let's say, a combat operation, you know, you're probably going to want to get out of there, or you're going to move, let's say, to a you know, to the back, to a rear position, where you're like just kind of like covering everybody else while they do other stuff, okay? You're not gonna be doing so much offensive stuff if your optics fail, and that's just the reality of it. So today, when we think of iron sights, it's purely a backup. It's purely like, oh shit, now I gotta use my iron sights. So I wanted to kind of go beyond that and learn a few things and practice using these offensively. So this is an interesting exercise to do. Set up a couple of targets like this, move around. I start with the quick, just coming up and doing that fast, EOTech, where you get your front sight post on top of your rear sight. Okay, and then take a couple of shots like that, and then practice transitioning to a proper sight picture, because that's what's gonna have to happen. But a lot of times you just got to get shots on target to buy you the time so that you can then get that proper sight picture. Okay, fun stuff. I hope you guys don't mind my sore throat. It's nothing major. It should be gone in a day or two, but it's gonna make me sound a little bit funny for the next couple of days. Drop some comments below. Let me know what you guys think about this. If you guys have anything to add or contribute to this, please let me know. By the way, as you guys can see, I put on a bayonet lug here with a Picatinny rail to attach a light. So for the last 3 years, I had a quad rail on this. However, this is a 9-inch guard, and I found that the quad rail was a bit heavy and awkward and bulky. So I went back to the plastic guard, which is the thing that made me go back to because once I went retro on this, I'm like, hey, let's go full retro. That made me put the carry handle on here, and make me start thinking about doing stuff that I'm doing this week with this. So I got the light on here. One of the issues with this is that your sling and your light are a bit close to each other. So you gotta have to basically learn to manage that. Okay. Obviously I got a pistol light on here, because if you put the rifle light's gonna come further back, and now that's gonna be like definitely in your way. So putting a pistol light here is like the fastest, easiest solution for a situation where you don't expect to be using the light. Okay, if you expect that you're gonna be using the light, I would put the quad rail back on here, right? If I was gonna be using the light and using this mainly at night or something, I would put the quad rail back on here. That's a much better choice. But I think like in the last 3 years that I've had the quad rail on here, I've only done night shooting maybe 5-6 times with this specific gun. So I'm like, you know what? Forget that. Put the lighter plastic rail on here, and if I want to shoot this at night, I'll just use that. And if I'm not, I can just take this off, and because who needs that extra weight if you're not going to be using it? So that's one of the nice things about. I like stuff that goes on and off really easy. Now, if you look at this lug here, they do make. I've seen a couple of other lugs where they got like these little holes that come off to the side, like little ears, where you can attach. It's in my pocket. Where you can attach the sling onto the rail itself, so the two will interfere less with each other. However, I still think there's going to be some interference. I mean, there's a reason why they moved to quad rails on this. However, like I said, if you're not going to be doing a lot of night shooting, if you're not going to be loading up your quad rail with all sorts of stuff and using it, it doesn't make sense to have that extra weight. So that's why I went back to the plastic guard on this, which is good, because that made me think about putting the carry handle on this. And it's like, wow, now I got a new toy to play with. Even though I already had the carry handle, it's like, I haven't used it in 3 years, so I kind of like I forgot a lot of the stuff that I knew about this. So I went through a whole process of zeroing this. Check out the last video I did. Some really interesting stuff on this, and the way you use this to adjust for range at different distances out to 600 yards. So anyway, thanks for watching. Drop some comments below, and I'll talk to you again soon.